Our scripture reading today comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 2, verses 7 through 12. I invite you to follow along in your bulletin or on the screen. Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there, ahead of them, went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. May God bless the hearing and reading of this word.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for reading. Have you ever received a Christmas gift a day late? Maybe because of got mailed, or maybe you saw family not on the 25th, but day later. So what are you going to do? Do you say, that's late? I'm not going to open it till next year or this year, December 25. That could be a reaction because it's late. Or do you say, oh, it's a nice gift, let me unwrap it? Hopefully, we do together, do the latter, and unwrap the beautiful gift of finding out what is all behind the familiar story Jeff just read. Today's special gift is Epiphany. Every single year on January 6th, we celebrate and we remember that the Magi went to see baby Jesus. By that time, he wasn't a baby anymore, but that a little bit later, and bought these gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. In many countries, Christmas is actually observed on January 6th. Like in the Eastern churches, I'm thinking about Ukraine and Russia right now, who celebrated and did a gift exchange yesterday. And I'm thinking of other countries like in France, where there's a special cake, the King's Cake, to be served on January 6th. We just take the decorations down and go on with our business as if nothing happened. Let us go and dive a little bit deeper into the story, even though we have heard it many, many, many times. Last year, that means during Advent and Christmas, we followed the story of Luke's Gospel. Remember the story of the shepherds with the angel, what they heard? Today, Jeff read us the story in Matthew's Gospel. So the nativity story is in two Gospels, in Matthew and in Luke. Most familiar is the Luke story with the shepherds who see the angel and walk through the fields and so on. The star is only in Matthew's Gospel. The Magi are only in Matthew's Gospel. So I need you all to make a big shift in thinking about who is going to be addressed. Not the poor people like in Luke's Gospel, but here we are coming up with the scholars from the East, a different culture. And in some traditions, the three wise men, we do not know anything else about them, represent different nationalities, different continents, Asia, Europe, Africa. And in some pictures, you might see one of them being in a different skin color, because he's from Africa. We assume Ethiopia. There are many, many stories beyond it. And in some traditions, they even have names. CMH, Caspar, Melchior, CMB, Caspar, Melchior, and Balthasar. There are different traditions about these people. We don't even know if they're three. We only know that they're bringing 3 gifts. So we assume everybody carries their own gift. But there may be 20 or 30. We have no clue. What we do know is that they walked a very long way. They came from the east. which is not just east of Columbus. It is not just eastern Ohio, border to Pennsylvania. We are talking about the east. According to what people think, they walked about 1,000 miles. It is a long walk, like East Coast and back. And if you had to walk that, because there were no highways, no Route 70, which takes you all the way through, you had to walk that through the hills and through the deserts. It takes a long time. So just for math reasons, because I know kids are back in school, 1,000 miles, if you walk according to Google Maps, it takes you 260 hours to walk it, more than 260 hours. So if you divide 262 hours and just assume 8 hours walk, because, why not 8 hours like people walk 8 hours on a natural basis? That makes over 30 days straight walking. That does not include any blisters, any broken soles on your shoes, any stops for the caravans, or anything else. It is a long trek, a long, long walk through the hills, dangerous because, again, no highways, no police, no anybody else. You're out then. And then also assume, just because of what Jeff read to us, there are different words used in the Greek than there are in Luke. We assume that baby Jesus was not an infant anymore because two things, two clues. Mary was in a house, the Holy Family was in a house, so they're not in a stable anymore. And twice it is said, look for the child, a different word than just infant or baby. And later on, if you read the story, it's a very horrible story, so we're not telling it, especially when children are around, because King Herod did something awful. He, what was called the slaughtering of the innocent, anybody 2 years and younger. So we assume that Jesus by then was probably toddling around, trying to walk the penguin walk, like many kids first walk. So not an infant anymore, but still a threat to King Herod, who wants to hold on to his power like nobody's business. And we know later on, if you continue to read, because of what King Herod is planning, the Holy Family will be refugees. So keep that in mind. Refugees, you're trying to save your life, you're going back, and also the wise guys going back on a different route because they're afraid of King Herod. There's a lot of walking going on. And if I were Mary, and I get these visitors from different cultures visiting me, and they're bringing these gifts, I would say, oh, that's interesting. Thanks. Maybe I would ask for the gift receipt, because I'm going to be a refugee. So what am I going to do with gold, myrrh, and frankincense? I'm thinking practical, okay? I'm a rational thinking. I grew up with engineers in my family, so we think practical. These gifts, not practical. The gold, well, you could trade it maybe for some food on the road. But if it were me receiving those gifts, I would ask for diapers, casserole dishes, and maybe a college fund, okay? Because this kid is growing up and you want to invest. So be practical here. Frankincense and myrrh, you're going to be on a long journey, or maybe give me a little camp stove that I can make some food while we are walking these 8 hours every single day. But what am I going to do with frankincense and myrrh? Frankincense and myrrh are both perfumes, expensive, and they're both used in the temple. Frankincense because Jesus is like the priestly and the God character of Christ. Gold we get king's family characters. And myrrh because Mary and Joseph are going to embalm him. That's not the gifts I find on any kind of baby shower list. I'm sorry, I don't find them there. So I wonder, what is Mary going to do with these gifts? Why these gifts? Again, coming from my perspective, I grew up with 4 brothers, so we had to be practical. 1 income, a small little house. Christmas, there was nothing frivolous. There was always a PJ, a pair of shoes, and a sweater, because that's what you needed, or maybe a coat, a winter coat. Something frivolous like that? What are we going to do with that? Maybe in today's term, how I might think, we would send a research team over. Maybe we would videotape everything and then have it on YouTube or anywhere else on our phones immediately when they visit. But they come from different cultures, and maybe what Matthew is telling me, be open to different cultures, be open to different thinking, because not everything has to be practical and rational and make sense. Only after becoming an adult, I realized that there is actually value in some glitter, in some perfume, in something really, really fancy, especially on a gray day like that. It does not all have to be practical. It does not all have to be. And maybe that's what the Magi want to teach me today in January 2024. Because we have no idea how old these Magi were. But we know, because Jeff read it to us, that they fell on their knees. So they didn't worry about how they're going to get up again. They fell on their knees. They adored that child, however old that child was. And they brought these gifts, valuable gifts. We do know that frankincense and myrrh has some medicinal purposes. Till now, in the Asian cultures, they're used to heal not only toothache, and we all, once we had the children, we now all know how teething can hurt, and other infections as well. So there is some practical value. But maybe the lesson teaches me, and maybe you as well, sometimes it's just nice to be transformed into a different world. And we are going to celebrate communion real soon today. There are many articles written about it. We have celebrated communion many, many, many times. But there's something which goes beyond words, beyond the rational, beyond what we can see, beyond what we can understand with our minds. And I invite you today, on this Epiphany Sunday, to be transformed, to experience the Christ. Because I believe that Christ is present in the person next to you, behind you, before you, in the person hurting, in the person caring, that Christ is here. We all, I believe, sometimes need a little bit of perfume. Not just because the hygienic reasons we're not, as we have now, no running water, and maybe a little bit of perfume might help with your nose, but sometimes it is okay to go out and do something extravagant. And I just hope that this child, who we need, that this child, just like the Magi, will transform us. That all this trek of a long, long walk is worth it. That whatever these days, these last days brought us, that whatever is ahead of us is worth to stop here, to take it all in. Just imagine we are those guys. Take it all in. And then be transformed and go a different way and share that story with others. It might not make much sense to others. It might not be rational. It might not be practical. But all what you can do is share from your heart. what it means to you and how your life has been transformed by the one whose birth we celebrated 2 weeks ago. Fall on your knees. Go all out. Bring the perfume, bring in the glitter, and whatever else doesn't make any sense. Just adore and go home a different route so that you can share what you have experienced. A different world beyond our rational thinking. With all that, we say, Amen.